going, Bethany?
Not bad, not bad.
We're excited to have you on finally, right? We've been trying to
I
plan this for a little
know.
while now, so it's good.
Sorry about that.
No worries at all. I know you're busy with the transition, right, to Las Vegas and all that. So
Yep.
how's that been?
Oh, it's been awesome. I've been enjoying that a lot. It's been a good change and a necessary change that I've needed for a long time. So I'm glad that I finally did it and
Yeah, that's
moved.
good. That's awesome. So now you were just recently on a podcast, right? If I'm correct,
Yes,
that's
with
right.
Power
So
Monkey.
yeah.
That was
So
like
how did
2
that
weeks
go? Is
ago.
that good?
Yeah, it was a good one. Yeah. I
Uh,
really want to go to their camp. So I'm like, hey, maybe this is my end.
Yeah, I know. I went on their page and saw some stuff. Looks really cool. So, but real quick, so that's Colin right there, and
Oh,
that's
nice to
Kyle
meet
up
you.
there. So,
How's it
uh,
going?
Nice
Kyle's
to meet you.
actually a temporary co-host. Our other one couldn't make it. So, but yeah, we're really excited to kind of hear what we have to say. This podcast mainly is just to give our listeners like insights to our guests on their journey so far. And I know that you have quite the journey, right? You've tapped into a
Yeah.
few different areas: bodybuilding, triathlons, multiple half marathons. So, yeah, why don't you kind of give us a little background on your journey thus far? Take us from the start. Bodybuilder. Well, let's start with gymnastics, right? So you were
Yeah.
gymnast first. So kind of how did you lean from gymnastics to go on into bodybuilding?
Oh man, yeah, that's a journey in itself. So I did competitive gymnastics from age of 5 to about 12. And then when I hit 12, I ended up hurting my back really bad. And like gymnastics mentality is like when you're injured, you just like keep pushing through it. And so that's what I was doing to the point where I literally could not move. And I was like,
Jeez.
okay, I really did hurt myself. And I ended up going through like a series of doctors, and each doctor was just kind of like, I don't know what's wrong with you. And I was like, well, I swear I'm not making this up. Like, I want to do gymnastics. I'm not trying to get out of gymnastics or anything. So yeah, I went through a series of doctors that did like MRIs would die. And they just like chalked it up to like, you have inflammation, and some bulging discs in your back. And I was like, okay. Went through like a series of like different pain things. So like I did 2 steroid shots, one in my SI joint, one in my piriformis, and those like kind of helped, but nothing was like, yeah, that's gonna help. So the doctors were just like, you just can't do gymnastics anymore. But then they also said things like, you're never going to be able to run again. You're never going to be able to tumble again. You should just sit on the couch. So at age 12, I was like, what? When my dream at that time was like, I want to go to the Olympics, or at least like
Yeah.
do this through college or something. It's always been my dream to be able to do gymnastics until, you just get to the point where you have to retire, because like the age life of a gymnast isn't that long. So I was like, I just want to
Yep.
make it till that shelf life is done. But I guess that wasn't in my deck of cards. So ended up taking a year off because my back was that bad. I look like an 80-year-old woman, honestly, at 12 years old. Like I would pick a sock off the ground and then my back would go out on me. I'd get
Oh,
like stuck in a 90-degree angle. And
and how old are
then
you
just like,
here? You were young,
I was
right?
12. Yeah, I was 12.
Easy.
I was like, how am I going through this much pain at 12 years old?
Oh,
So I'd have to like lay in bed for days on end, like have help with just like putting on my clothes and stuff. And yeah, so anyways, got through that. And like it's crazy that I'm still dealing with back problems at 27. But like that's a journey along in itself too. But anyway, so I got better to the point where I was like, I'm going to stick it to those doctors. I'm going to start running. So that was like the first thing that I decided to do when I felt like I could do things without my back going out on me. So I started doing long distance running. So that was like in high school ish. So like 15, 16 years old. So did like half marathons and 10Ks, 5Ks. Somehow got pushed into doing like 1 and 2 mile in track in high school and cross country. Didn't want to do it. I was like, no, thank you. Because like the coach came up to me, I was like, hey, I think you'd be really good at this. And I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want to compete. And they're like, well, sorry, you're gonna have to do it anyways. So somehow I got forced into that, did that for a while. Sorry, And then switched into doing a couple triathlons. I was just trying to find something that was like my niche after gymnastics. I was like, what's going to fulfill me after being a gymnast, which was like everything to me. So yeah, that's when I started going on my journey of different things like long distance running, then triathlons, and then obstacle course racing, and then finally bodybuilding, and then CrossFit. So,
Yeah.
and I loved doing all that stuff, but nothing was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. So I want to touch on this because we talked to a lot of our guests about injuries. Believe it or not, every athlete goes through injuries, and all of our guests
Oh yeah.
are mainly athletes, right? So we always talk to them about the mental health aspect of the injuries, because this podcast is actually in the mental health category on Apple Podcasts. And it's one of those things where it can make or break an athlete's career, I think, and how you react and the adversity that you go through to get through on the other end. So kind of, what do you, from what you can remember, I know you were young at the time, but what do you remember on how you dealt with the adversity at the time of the injury?
I didn't deal with it very well. So when I had to quit gymnastics, I looked at all the gymnasts that quit, and I was like, they're all fat, because we don't grow anymore. We don't get any taller. Our growth is stunted. So I looked at all the gymnasts and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be fat. Like that was like my first thought, which is so bad at 12 years old to even think like that. But so I decided to take things into my own hand, and I went the complete opposite route. And I was like, okay, I can't work out, I'm not going to eat. And so ended up giving myself like all these food disorders and eating disorders because of that. So, but I just felt like it was one thing that I could control, which is good and bad, right? Like, hey, on the right side, didn't get fat.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, right. But then there's all those other issues that come with that. And then now I had to dig myself out of a deep, deep hole because of all that, all the stuff that I put myself through. So, and then I definitely went through like ups and downs with it too, like not being able to work out for a year and just being in like so much pain. Definitely like could get you into like a depressive state. So that's why like I tried to control the things that I could and like make myself happy with that. But in the grand scheme of things, like that's just not the way to happiness, right? Like it goes back to like even at a competition, placing first, getting prize money, all that stuff, that doesn't lead to happiness, you know? So I thought at that time, I was like, well, I can just make myself happy by being skinny and like controlling what I could eat.
Unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do that. But yeah, so now that injury, I noticed, right, following on your social media account, obviously Instagram, you have a huge following. But you focus a lot on your mobility work. Now, does that have a lot to do with the injuries you've had in the past? Is that why you've kind of really doubled down on that category of training?
Yeah, yes and no. So like, so long story short, I finished high school in 3 years because I really hated high school and I knew that I wanted to do something in the fitness industry. So I wanted to do personal training. And the first course that I took after getting like my NASM certification, like the whatever personal training certification, was a trigger point therapy. And that just is into like mobility and activation and all of that. And I just kind of like really fell in love with that. So when I was doing personal training, I found like a niche with that. And then because of all the injuries that I did occur, like growing up through gymnastics, and I just was constantly hurt because I was just a crazy child. But I think just both of those made me enjoy like the activation and mobility part. So definitely a big component, as probably know looking at the Instagram, but I truly have like a passion for it. Like I really, really do love that stuff.
That's awesome.
In Bethany, so going back to one thing you said about results, you said that results don't really excite you, right? And so how I can look at it is there's two aspects of competition, right? There's the results and then there's the process. So for you, I'm assuming you love the process of being a CrossFit athlete, training with people and having that lifestyle, having that routine. Is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there was a point in time where I was like, yeah, I want to get first, and like, that's all that matters. And then I think for me, a big wake up call was 2019 when I ended up getting 8th place at the games. There was like no satisfaction in that. And I just kind of started putting things in perspective. I was like, man, like, what is it going to take then? You know, if I can't be happy getting 8th place in the world at the CrossFit Games, like, what's going to make me happy? And so that's when I had to kind of like dial it back in and kind of take a couple steps back and more of like a bird's eye perspective of like, what's really truly going to make me happy? And if I don't have anybody to celebrate with it either, when I do have success, then what's it all for?
That makes sense. I would say, because I've listened to a few of your podcasts, I've been following you for years. You're like one of my favorite CrossFit athletes.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate
it. So I guess with that being said, like considering I'm getting more into like the intermediate CrossFit space, I'm trying to get to where you are, but I got a few years in front of me. What would you kind of, if you were to go back a few years, because you now know like 8th place, like you're not happy. Yeah. What is that thing that you would tell your younger self that would make you happy and to kind of focus on to kind of, I guess, better your expectations and enjoy the process a little bit more?
Yeah. I think for me is honestly doing all this personal growth on the side that has nothing to do with working out and competing has brought way more happiness into my life than any of the stuff in the gym. I truly I love working out and I love training and all that and conditioning. It's always been a part of my life, but I wish I would have started the other stuff sooner to really bring joy and peace in my life. So I started doing a lot more journaling and then just like personal growth with like books, reading. I hated reading all through high school. I was at Spark Notes. Like I was one of those people. Never read one book in high school.
I think most of us were.
It was the greatest accomplishment. So I never thought that would be like an avid reader. I was just like, this is just not for me. I have to reread things like 10 times to be able to like understand the concepts of things. And I think once all that stuff happened in 2019 and then going through like a ton of injuries last year, it made me like slow down and I started working more on that stuff. And now kind of being not at the other side of it, but kind of being a couple years in, I'm like, man, if I would have started this stuff a couple of years ago when I started CrossFit, then I think I would have enjoyed the process a little bit more, and not put so much stress and emphasis on like, I can only compete. I can't have any friends. Family stays away. Like, I just got to do this. And it's okay if I'm not happy and all that. And it just, in the long run, that stuff doesn't ever work out. So
yeah.
That's what I would recommend.
Interesting. Okay. What are some of your favorite books that you've been kind of like reading recently?
So Ryan Holiday has like a 3-series books out. Yeah. Ryan Holiday is amazing. Look him up if y'all guys and all the readers on here are listeners. He is great. He's got some great books out there. And then he's got like the Daily Stoic too, but like Ego is the Enemy is a great one. Obstacle is the Way. Stillness is Key. Great books. Atomic Habit is a really good book. Just finished that one. And then I went the other direction, which I was kind of challenging myself with Man Searches for Meaning. I think that's the name of the book. Yeah. By, who I'm talking about? By Frankel, whatever his name is, whatever. Anyways, it's a great book, but it definitely makes me think a lot more because it's a lot of philosophy, and that is definitely not my strong suit. But yeah, so that's been a good book. But yeah, so I would say Ryan Holiday is definitely my go-to top pick right now.
Awesome. So now, did you go to college or no?
No. I did one half of semester, not even a full semester, half of semester, and realized that I was just going to waste money and time. So yeah, when I was 17, so I finished my junior and my senior year in high school in 3 months, all online, and just started personal training after that.
Wow. So now, like, this is something we talk about all the time on here about passion. Like, I mean, the brand slogan is driven by passion. So a lot of people, we always feel like people who go to college, they're just kind of there going through the motions. Most of them there to party, most of them anyways. Yeah. And I feel like people are just following everyone's footsteps, where there's very few people who actually go after what they want. So like at the time you wanted to go into personal training, right? You're really serious into that and you went for it. So kind of, what was your I guess, obstacles to get to that point? Like, were your parents kind of concerned, or like what was going through your
Yeah.
mind at that point?
So I'm the baby of four, and I've always been
Okay.
more of like the black sheep. So kind of just always did things different than any of my other siblings. Like, first one to get a job. So at 15, out of all my siblings, they didn't even have jobs. I was like, I want to get a job so I can have money so I can start doing things, you know? And then, yeah. And then, so my dad, of course, was like, you got to go the straight way path. He was just like, you need to go to college, do all that. All your siblings did that. So why aren't you doing that? But it wasn't necessarily pressure or anything. He just would recommend that I do that. And it was the same thing with my mom. And then my mom's husband, my stepdad, he actually never went to college and did really well for himself at Dell, was really high up in the ranks there. And he was like, told my mom, she's good. She doesn't need to go to college. She's fine. She's got a good head on her shoulders. And so I think him just explaining that to my mom, she was just like, okay, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. They'll support you, and then they're subconsciously like, oh, maybe you should go to college. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like, at 17, I moved out. Like, I was like, I'm good, mom. I'm just going to get a place of my own.
Wow,
And
that is insane.
yeah, I was a crazy child. I wanted to actually quit high school because I hated high school that much. Nothing happened. I just didn't like people my age. And I hated the whole like social interaction thing. And all I wanted to do was like work out, and that was it. So I actually went up to my principal and was like, hey, either give me my GED or I quit. And he was like, what? Whoa, what? Why? And I was like, I just don't want to do school anymore. And so he had to come up with like this whole other plan. He was like, well, what if I just let you come in whenever you want to from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and you can do everything online at school? And I was like, sold. So that's why I did my junior and my senior year in 3 months. And I was like, done.
Wow. Oh my
I'm
God.
crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So how did you fill that time though? When you were just working out, and obviously for a lot of high school kids, that's the routine, is they go to school, you know, they're interacting with their friends, they eat lunch, then they have sports after, something like that. But what was your routine? Obviously you had a vision, which is really commendable, and you followed that vision. But what was your routine when you were younger?
So like during that little period, I think it was either I worked out. It feels like so long ago. I was like, oh my gosh, that was 10 years ago. But I think I either worked out in the morning at Lifetime Fitness, because that's where I wanted to work. So before that, I would actually, before I decided to even have this plan, I would be like, bye, mom, going to school. And then turn the other way and go up to Lifetime Fitness and start shadowing personal trainers, because I knew that's what I wanted to do. So in the mornings, I would go work out or go to school first, do a couple of hours of just online stuff, get my schoolwork done. During lunch, go back up to the gym, work out or shadow personal trainers, come back, and then do the rest of my work until 6 p.m. And then, you know, go home, do it all over again, or go work out again. I was such a nerd.
That's awesome. So now kind of fast forwarding with the training aspect of things. So obviously then you were very interested in training, and the personal training aspect, obviously that got you even more interested into training. So when you became a CrossFit athlete, how have you adapted over the last few years? Because your progression has been insane, right? So 2017, you were 22nd, 2018, 16th, 2019, 8th. So like, what kind of changed over those years? I know that you did change trainers a couple times, I want to say. So kind of like, what was your process through that, and how did things change over the course of those years?
Yeah. So before CrossFit, as you can probably tell already, I'm a very extreme person. So it's like all or nothing.
Yeah.
So knowing that CrossFit was maybe something that I could do as a career, I was like, all right, I need to slow my roll and slow it down a little bit. And so instead of like trying to change everything at once, which is what I wanted to do the first year, which was like, you know, diet and training and no job and all that stuff, I decided in the back of my mind that I wanted to make it a process and just kind of chip away at things throughout the years, even though in my mind, I'm like, I just want to get to the ends. I like A and I like Z. I don't like the B through Y. So I had to like really work on self-control and just work on one thing at a time. So like in 2017, it was just kind of getting used to all the programming that entails with CrossFit. And then in 2018, it was like, okay, kind of got that down. It's time to kind of switch roles from working full time to making the workout full time. So what does that look like? Maybe adding in some sponsors, you know, getting money through that, monthly stipends. And then like 2019 was like dialing in the diet a little bit. Definitely used to like to party a lot. So like 2017 before the games, didn't think I was going. And then I was excited and wasn't ready, and I partied a lot. Like every other weekend. It was bad. But I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, if I try to change all of this at once, I'm going to get burnt out really fast and not enjoy it and not enjoy the process and everything that comes with it. So yeah. And then like this year was or last year was more about getting in that personal growth. So kind of like that question that you said at the beginning, it was like, well, what's one thing that you would change is, yeah, I would love to do all this personal growth stuff, but maybe I wasn't ready for it, you know, until now. So like, I think just chipping away at things and adding things in nice and slowly is the boring thing to do, but definitely the better way of going about things. So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at.
It's the little things. Like over time, I feel like so many people, they're always focused on the end goal, and they get caught up in the end goal and then they quit sooner than they should have. And they're not focused on the little day-to-day things that'll get you to that big thing. And it seems like that's what you've done over the years. So that's, it's very inspiring.
And I think too, like Joey, like you said, a lot of people that quit, they put too much pressure on themselves. They try to do it all at once, but just enjoying the process and doing it, getting a little bit better each day, improving a little bit.
For sure.
That's really important. And I think that a lot of our guests, they've done a really good job of that. A lot of our guests have transformed, you know, mentally and physically, and they found their passion, and they found their passion in the right way, in the sense that they've just gone in the process and taken little steps to getting there, versus just trying to take one big step and all of a sudden getting all this success really fast. You know, it just doesn't work like that. So that's a good way to get you to where you're
for sure. Crash and burn. That's a great recipe for crashing and burning.
Exactly.
So another thing that I was curious about, so we always talk to our guests about their training regimen and their routine and kind of what their sweet spot is for their training weekly. Some people say it's 5 days a week. Some people say it's 4, some say it's 3 spread across the week. So kind of what have you come to the conclusion, I guess, over the past few years of being in CrossFit? What's the sweet spot for you?
I think one full day off for me a week is good. Just for like a mental break too, more than physical. But I like training at least 5 or 6 times a week. It's kind of changed over the past year coming up to Vegas. Before that, I was training like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, off Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, active recovery day, Thursday. But here it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday is on, Thursday, active recovery, Friday, Saturday on, and then Sunday completely off. So that works for me, but I don't know. I feel like your body is forever changing. So you kind of just have to go with the flow. So like I ended up not taking like a complete full rest day last week or 2 weeks ago. And I felt really good going into the gym. It's not like I did anything crazy on Sunday, but like I went and swam, and then I came into the gym on Monday and I was like, man, I feel so good. So I don't know. I feel like different per person for sure, but then it's different for like per year because our bodies are forever changing. So I'm trying to find the sweet spot again, especially with changing my schedule a little bit, coming to Vegas, and all of that. But so it's either one full day off or kind of do like a nice, easy piece on Sundays.
Yeah. And how serious do you take like sleep? Because I know sleep is obviously crucial for performance. Like how much are you sleeping?
No less than like 9 hours a night.
Wow.
Like it's 9 to 10 that's where it's at. Like that is so much recovery that people miss out on. It's insane. Like water and sleep and just eating enough food. Honestly, I wasn't doing any of that stuff before. And
right. So that's not, sorry to cut you off. That's another thing that I notice is that I was watching I think it was a Instagram story video, and you were talking about kind of how you space out your meals during the day. And you were like, yeah, I don't really, weigh my meals or anything. I just make sure to get in the meals that I need to. And honestly, I think that that's the way to approach it, because when you get down to like the exact calorie that you're eating per day, you lose your mind. Like it's too much,
Yeah.
So
yeah, too much stress.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I got that from like when I did bodybuilding competitions. That's how it was. Like it was to the T, like what you're eating.
Yeah.
And like grams of protein, carbs, and fat. And it was just life consuming. Like you can't have a life when it's like that. So I think the biggest thing is just like making sure that you get protein, fat, and carbs in with each meal. And there you go.
Yep.
Keep it simple.
Simple does it. Yep. It's awesome. So now we also always ask our guests is kind of what are your plans for the next 5 to 10 years? I know it's a big question to ask, but kind of where do you want to take the direction of your life?
I got plans. I like planning out. I'm one of those.
Yeah.
I'm a planner.
Yeah, I see you over there with your pen and paper.
I know. I just always have things in my hand.
Yeah.
I always have like sticky notes everywhere. I'm like, all right, what do I need to do for the day? But yeah, I think it's good to have a plan, but then it's also okay for that plan to be different and to maybe not go out the way that you think it's going to be, because that's the way to success is not a straight line. Like everyone says, it's up and down. So like, you just have to go with the flow. So like, I think it's good to have long-term and short-term goals and plans, but also be okay if it veers off to the right or left. So for me, my goal right now is to compete for another 3 years, hit 30, and I want to have kids. So that's kind of where my headspace is at. And then kind of like semi-retire, because I do really, really enjoy competing. And it's always been a big part of my life. So if my body allows me to come back after having kids, then I want to compete again and like go masters and all of that, or team, or just say indie. There's like a lot of, I mean, like look at Sam Briggs. She's like 38 years old and still competing with the indies, so like, we're the outliers. There's outliers there, but if my body allows me to keep going, then for sure want to keep doing that stuff. But the biggest thing for me is not giving myself excuses the next 3 years. And I think in the past, there was a lot of variables that went into it. Like, oh, I'm coaching on the side, so I can't put too much energy into training, or, some of my energy is going towards that, or I can't sleep enough because of that, or whatever it is. And I'm taking out all the excuses the next couple of years and just seeing where I can take myself with that. And if the best place that I get is 8th place, I'm super happy with that. But I want to give myself the best possible chance to do the best that I can and enjoy the process during this whole next couple of years. So that's kind of where my goal is. And then having a platform set up too, which is what I'm trying to do right now through Instagram. But like I'm working on a clothing line right now with Born Primitive. So having that set up, working on some possible online programming with the activation and warm up stuff. So having that going. But yeah, just like working on that stuff, but also focusing on training for the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now, do you think that stuff that you do on the side, do you think that helps you perform even better in the gym? Because I feel like when you're just so focused in, I know we've touched on it pretty lightly, I'd say, but being so zoned in on one thing can actually hinder performance. And I feel like all this stuff that you're doing on the side, it does have to do with training and working out and, self-development. But do you think that that's helped you develop as a CrossFit athlete?
Yeah. If like your only focus is like, got to be a CrossFit Games athlete and that's it, the end, like you have to look at the bigger picture. Like you have a shelf life. Everyone's got a shelf life. It doesn't matter how long or short it is. So you need to set yourself up for success with other things. And I think kind of leaving the stuff at the gym is super important. And like good or bad, like having a really good training day or a really bad training day, just leave it there. And then same at competitions too, like enjoy competing and the whole experience. But I think if you don't have other passions and other hobbies or other things going on, like you're going to make yourself crazy. So super important, I think, to have other things going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so
the balance.
Oh yeah.
Colin, what are you going to say?
Joey, I was just going to say, preparing for that transition, Bethany, that's something that's obviously really important, and you're doing that. because there's a lot of sad stories. I mean, we saw Vincent Jackson. He's a former NFL wide receiver. And he was obviously his life was football. He was training every day. He was obviously at practice in a team environment with coaches in a structured environment. And then when he retired, he lost that. And he just died in a hotel room by himself a couple of weeks ago of chronic alcoholism. So it's something that's really concerning for any high level athlete. Obviously, you're top 10 ranked in the world for your sport. And so obviously you're focusing on that a lot. But the fact that you're also taking these other opportunities that are on the side that you can parlay into the later stage of your life, that's really commendable.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's just really important. Like if you're not doing that stuff, like you're gonna end up like that, or like a lot of NFL players when they are retired, they're like bankrupt because all they do is just spend all their money and they don't have anything else that set up for themselves for success later on. So yeah, I think it's really important. It's dumb of us not to at the end of the day. Why would we not use the platforms that we have to be able to like share with other people and educate other people and help other people? So really important for me to do that stuff.
Yeah. And you've done that.
Go ahead,
Kyle. No, you're good.
Well, I was just going to say, because it's like perfect transition, honestly. You're like, well, we got to use the platforms and then stuff afterwards. Like obviously you got a bunch of stuff going on with your sponsors and whatnot. You got anything set up for that you kind of like want to work with as far as like companies, maybe like Born Primitive or ESC Sounds or the Toe Spacers, for instance? Like, are you trying to work on something that, you want to try and see if you can get a partnership or be a part of a company where you can grow those bad boys, like even further than just a sponsored athlete, maybe when, you're done competing while those years you're there with your kids?
For sure. Yeah. Like I definitely want to, that's kind of like my goal is to kind of have like a core, couple of sponsors that I can have like different things inside of them. That way I can have, growth from that. And that's something that can expand on for years to come. So yeah, kind of like I said before, like Born Primitive, starting to align with them. I think that's really cool that they're allowing me to do that. And that I get an opportunity to do that, because there isn't a lot of people that, even with like Reebok athletes or Nike athletes, like they're not getting able to do that stuff. So it's cool to be able to do that one. And then like maybe aligning myself with someone that I can have a platform for like the online programming, and doing that, because there's definitely a need for that. There's all these programs out there that, like the bodybuilding, and then there's like the misfits and the comp training, but there isn't a whole lot of like activation warm-up side of things. And so I think that's where my niche can come into play. And I really want to do something with that. So that's kind of like where my head's at right now with that. And then, like other little things too. I would love to just align with all my sponsors and just have little things with them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool.
You guys got anything else?
Oh man. So many things to ask.
All right, well, while you're looking there, I was curious because there's not really a segue into this. Obviously it's the elephant in the room. COVID, right? This past year has affected a lot of people. And athletes, gyms closing down is one of them. So kind of how has that affected you this past year? Did you have access to gyms the whole time? Like, I know that you moved, but that was probably afterwards. Probably more of your training was affected.
Yeah. Well, so last year there's a couple things. Like I was definitely injured most of the year last year. So I could only basically do bodybuilding stuff and like banded work and dumbbell work. So I was at one point working in my apartment complex inside my room on the second floor. But I got lucky because I really didn't have a bunch of equipment. So my gym at the time, Streamline, they just allowed me to bring like a rower up there and a bike and dumbbells and bands and kettlebells. So I had like the whole 9 yards inside my little 900 square foot apartment. So that was actually kind of fun. I enjoyed that a lot. And I had my boyfriend there. So we both got to do things together. And it was all fun and games until you had to start taking things downstairs and, do barbell work down there. And I was like, yeah, this is fun. And then like after the second week, you're like, okay, that's not so much fun. You really appreciate not having to move equipment everywhere. In Texas, it was like, I feel like Texas is its own country sometimes.
Absolutely.
We don't always follow all the rules.
Nope.
So my gym, we definitely had like the protocols set up. Don't get me wrong. And I feel like people came to the gym if they felt safe and felt good. And so when we did open back up, we had all the protocols, like, you have to reserve, there's only 10 people per like spot or whatever, or during the hour. So, but we got lucky enough to where we didn't have any cases in our gym at all. And I was able to work out in the gym, and I mostly worked out like in the middle of the day when no one was there. So after the first 2 months, or it was like almost 3 months of working out in my apartment, came back to the gym and just kind of was by myself a little bit, but that was pretty normal. Like I've always been like that. So nothing was really new for me when we came back to the gym, just all by my lonesome self most of the time.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. To kind of piggyback on your training and your programming, I know you said you wanted to do a lot of the mobility and the activation and the warm up stuff. I kind of follow a program track that's not that's kind of similar to that, instead of like the comp trains or the mayhem athletes where it's just volume. Do you feel like with all of your injuries, and for maybe even like some of the gen pop, do you think like less is more if you just add in more intensity, or do you feel like to a certain point you're going to need that volume? Because obviously with the open coming up here in a few weeks, I feel like you're just probably doing a very low amount of volume, trying to stay healthy, get to the quarterfinals. But for like the most of us, like I feel like if you're trying to get to that next step, a lot of us are like, well, I feel left behind because I don't have a muscle up, so I got to do all this accessory work, and then Fraser's doing this and Froning's doing this, and Bethany's doing this. Like I'm getting left behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on less is more?
Yeah, no, I think that's the hard thing about Instagram, right? Is that there's a lot of comparing going on, and you see the highlights, and then you get FOMO. And so like my goal actually this past year, and it's not really a goal, it was just kind of something that organically happened, is I saw myself not getting on Instagram so much. Like, yes, I get on there to post and do my stories and do all that stuff, but I don't lollygag on there. I don't like just scroll through, because that's when you start comparing and feeling like you're missing out on something or whatever that is. So I think there is a time and the place where you do need volume, especially if you're trying to compete at a high level, because at the CrossFit Games, we're going 4 days in a row. Like it's just stupid volume that you're doing. Yeah. But do you need that year round? Probably not, and then like there's specific things that you can always work on, right? Like if you have muscle up trouble, maybe just working more on that. But yeah, I think there's a time and the place for volume, and there's a time and a place where you need to rest, but then you also need to be in tune with your body. And that's one thing that I've been really working on. Is I think before I got all these injuries last year, I like heard myself like, hey, you should probably stop. starting to get a little tired there, and like as an athlete, you're like, no, I need to push. I'm an athlete. This is what you do, and this is how you get better. Yep. And you see all those people over there and they're doing all this stuff. And I think at the end of the day, we're probably at an age and a training age where you've done all the volume that you need to do. And now it's like getting more into specific things, and then listening to your body too. So when my body starts saying, hey, a little tired here, buddy. Well, all right, it's time to back off a day or slow down, or just I can literally tell my coach, I don't think I can do this weight today. I need to go a little bit lighter, and like being okay with that. And I think that's where a lot of athletes go wrong. Is growing up, we were told you got to go 100%, go hard or go home. Someone's always working harder than you. Yep. And sure, yeah, that's true. But if you're not taking care of your body and listening to what your body specifically needs, then instead of being out for a day, you're going to be out for a month, a year, 2 years, so. And that's kind of where I was at last year.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's one of those things where you only learn with time and experience, right? You have to fail, make the mistakes, train with some injuries, right? And then you're learning from those, and you're learning your body. So, but yeah, this has been awesome to have you on here. Yeah. It's just awesome stuff for our listeners, and we learned a lot too. So, if you guys got anything else, Bethany, do you have anything else for us?
Just thank you for letting me get on here.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And we look forward to following your progress over the next couple of years, and we're pulling for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate
thank you.
it.
All right.
Thanks, Bethany. I'll see you in Madison.
right. Thank you. Bye,
We'll
guys.
see ya. Bye.